everyone, good evening. It's Friday evening. It's July 31st, 2020. It's 10:37 p.m. where I live, and today's topic is going to be all about Fauci. And I found this article from The Sun, and I want you to listen to it because it's going to be a good one. It says, Trump fights Fauci. White House releases list of all Dr. Fauci's mistakes in damning coronavirus indictment as Trump feud heats up. How many of you knew he was in a little spat with this little guy? It says the White House officials have reportedly released a list of all the times Dr. Anthony Fauci has been wrong about the coronavirus pandemic. And Donald Trump's administration is clashing with the top disease expert as the pandemic continues to surge in the United States. Check this out. He's even got his little emblem. It says here, Donald Trump donned a first mask for the first time this weekend. And there's this little goofball. Dr. Anthony Fauci has clashed with Donald Trump. It's about time. I mean, he clashed from day one, but he left the little chicken out there to dance on the hot plate so that people would finally see through it, that it's just all been a scam. It says, and I think they took away I think that's just an advertisement. Okay, it says it came after President Trump said last week that Dr. Fauci is a nice man, but he's made a lot of mistakes. Anonymous officials in the administration had been handing out a list of past comments made by the expert, which have turned out being inaccurate, reports CNBC. The list included comments made in January that coronavirus, which has infected more than 3 million Americans, was not a major threat. It also highlighted Dr. Fauci saying that the virus was not driven by asymptomatic carriers, and his comment in March that people should not be walking around with masks. An official said several White House officials are concerned about the number of times that Dr. Fauci has been wrong on things. Dr. Fauci, 79, heads the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and has been a prominent figure during the United States fight against the pandemic. He has been in recent days critical of the way the Trump administration has handled the coronavirus, with reports him and Trump have not spoken in 2 months. The doctor said, as a country, when you compare us to other countries, I don't think you can say we're doing great. I mean, we're just not. He also accused Trump of getting his numbers wrong and suggested the president had made the response more difficult to coordinate. And Dr. Fauci has also accused states of opening up too quickly and skipping over guidelines while predicting U.S. infections could hit 100,000 a day in a congressional testimony in June. The U.S. recorded a record more than 70,000 cases per day on July 10th, but the number has since fallen to around 60,000. Here are the countries with the most COVID-19 deaths: United States, Brazil, United Kingdom, Mexico, Italy, France, Spain, India, Iran, and Peru. Countries with the most COVID-19 cases: United States, Brazil, India, Russia, Peru, Chile, Spain, Mexico, UK, and South Africa. Dr. Fauci's stance appears to be at odds with President Trump, who has been urging the United States to reopen to help save the economy. Trump said late last month that the virus is going away. Our bigger issue is with Fauci is stop critiquing the task force and try to fix it, another official told the Washington Post. Now, Peter Navarro, the Trump's trade advisor, said that Dr. Fauci has a good bedside manner with the public, but he has been wrong about everything I have ever interacted with him on. Now Fauci is saying that a falling mortality rate doesn't matter when it is the single most important statistic to help guide the pace of the economic reopening. So when you ask me if I listen to Dr. Fauci's advice, my answer is only with caution. Admiral Brett Giroir, a senior member of the COVID-19 task force, also publicly critiqued Dr. Fauci. He said, "I respected Dr. Fauci a lot, but Dr. Fauci is not 100% right, and he also doesn't necessarily, he admits that, have the whole national interest in mind." The admiral added he looks at it from a very narrow public health point of view. It says, David Barr, a pal of Dr. Fauci, said that the medic has become exasperated with the fact that he feels that some officials are not listening to the experts. And then Ron Klain, Trump rival of Joe Biden's former chief of staff, claimed that the list of errors was an effort to smear Dr. Fauci. Writing on Twitter, he said, "From a White House that has done many despicable things, smearing Tony Fauci is one of the worst. He has served 6 presidents and saved countless lives." Oh yeah, like back when they had the HIV in the 80s and 90s and he had the cures, and instead of releasing them to the public like he should have done, he has no heart because he's a reptilian. And he's a part of that whole group that, controls the world. It's like Pinky and the Brain. What are we going to do today, Pinky? Just like we always do. Control the world. Yeah, well, those days are over anyway. But, that little man, could have saved thousands of lives. And it was Gates and all them that put the HIV virus in the people in the first place. Is that not despicable? Is that not just about the most nastiest, the most vile thing that you could ever do to a human being? Knowing that you've got the cure, and we're listening to this little nanu, trying to guide the world, saying, "Oh, you better do this. No, you better do that. Oh, we better go this way. Oh, we better go that way." He just flip-flops like a fish out of water. That's what I think of the Fauci. And he's going down, but President Trump is just using him as a optics, You gotta let the people watch the movie. So I hope you guys have plenty of popcorn because it's going by really fast and there's so much action that's taking place on the sidelines, behind the scenes, underground, up above, that you gotta have like tentacles to keep up with everything that's going on. Anyway, it says that Trump donned a mask for the first time over the weekend as the United States continues to suffer with cases hitting 3,414,105 and the death toll reaching 137,787. Well, that's way below the average anyway of just the normal flu. That is like way below the normal flu. That we usually have 185,000 people that die from the flu every year. So I don't know where they're getting all excited about. Speaking about his advisors over the weekend, Trump reasoned they've been wrong about a lot of things, including face masks. Maybe they're wrong, maybe not, but a lot of them said don't wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Now they're saying wear a mask. So a lot of mistakes were made, a lot of mistakes. And it says here under this picture, the beach, many states have reopened despite the rise in cases. People on Miami Beach in Florida. Here's one from the Outraged Patriot. It says, Dr. Fauci's dark past brought to light. Trump reacts swiftly. President unhappy with Fauci's flawed projections and connections to Wuhan Virology Institute, Bill Gates' agenda. InfoWars says President Trump is seeing the light on the real Dr. Anthony Fauci after a series of White House briefings with intelligence insiders which were critical of the embattled supposed coronavirus medical guru. As detailed on the Thomas Paine podcast, EP21, Trump has soured on Fauci after some closed-door meetings at the White House this past week about allegations and questions regarding Fauci's professional resume. Dr. Judy Mikovits detailed disturbing allegations against Fauci on the Thomas Paine podcast, EP19. The groundswell of anti-Fauci intel was sparked by the damning interview with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on Thomas Paine podcast, EP18, that literally torched Fauci that followed a brutal, alarming podcast on Payne's EP17 that torched the CDC Director Robert Redfield and the White House top doc, Dr. Deborah Birx, for fabricating HIV/AIDS vaccine research according to internal Department of Defense documents. Now, the White House has been briefed as well, and Payne's newest podcast detailed the recent turn of events, and since it aired this week, Fauci has been largely absent from daily White House briefings. Flashback, tying it all together: China, Dr. Fauci, the French company Sanofi Pasteur, George Soros, and the Gates Foundation. Links between Dr. Tony Fauci, China, the French company Sanofi Pasteur, George Soros, and the Gates Foundation are old and deep, and the China coronavirus ties them all together. In late December of 2019, Taiwan sent an email to the World Health Organization, also known as the WHO, stating that a unique atypical pneumonia was identified in China and asking the WHO to provide any information they might have regarding the pneumonia. This is from William Yang. It says, breaking, Taiwan CDC releases full content of the email that they sent to WHO on December the 31st, 2019, warning them about the emergence of atypical pneumonia cases in #China and requests WHO to share more information with them. It says, news resources today indicate that at least 7 atypical pneumonia cases were reported in Wuhan, China. Their health authorities replied to the media that the cases were believed not SARS. However, the samples are still under examination and cases have been isolated for treatment. I would greatly appreciate if you would have relevant information to share with us. And thank you very much in advance for your attention to this matter. Best regards. At exactly the same time, and perhaps in response to Taiwan's notice, Chinese health officials notified the WHO of the coronavirus outbreak in Wuhan. And Chinese health officials informed the World Health Organization about the new virus on December the 31st. So by January 8th, it had been identified as a new coronavirus, a large family that causes the common cold and more serious illnesses, including SARS, which was also began in China. By January 12, Chinese scientists had sequenced the virus genetic makeup and shared it with the WHO, drawing praise for their transparency and their swift action. But then for most days between January the 5th and the 16th, China reported no new cases of the coronavirus leading up to the China New Year, yet there were hundreds of cases being reported in Wuhan and around China at that time. So in contrast, the Wuhan Health Commission reported no new cases from January the 5th to the 10th, and then again from the 12th to the 16th. But China's Lunar New Year rush, the world's largest annual human migration, began to get underway. So with millions of people passing through Wuhan, a major transit hub, a recently submitted complaint to the National Health Commission alleged that during this period, officials with the Wuhan Health Commission told doctors they were not allowed to report about the new virus, letting patients wander around freely instead of being isolated. And you bet your sweet bippy that President Trump is going to make them accountable. China knew that their biggest annual celebration, the Chinese New Year, was coming at the end of January, starting on Saturday, January the 25th. So the Chinese leaders stepped in and punished any reports on the coronavirus. It says here, not all the blame can be placed on local officials, health and governance experts say. The broader issue is that the local officials can be punished for reporting the bad news to higher officials. So the Chinese government's rigidity and a lack of transparency and accountability to the general public means that problems like the virus epidemic can fester hidden away until it's way too late. The Chinese leadership in the WHO held a lid on the coronavirus for 6 key days between the 14th of January and the 20th, right before the Chinese New Year. And in the 6 days after the top Chinese officials secretly determined they likely were facing a pandemic from a new coronavirus, the city of Wuhan, at the epicenter of the disease, hosted a mass banquet for tens of thousands of people. Millions began traveling through Lunar New Year celebrations, and President Xi Jinping warned the public on the 7th day, January 20th. By that time, more than 3,000 people had been infected during almost a week of public silence, according to the internal documents that were obtained by the Associated Press and the expert estimates based on retrospective infection data. And on January the 15th, China would only report 41 cases publicly. So based on this information, President Trump in Davos claimed that the U.S. had the situation under control, no doubt based on what his health advisor has told him. So the media now claims that the president missed the significance of the situation. But only a week before Trump's statement in Davos, China had confirmed only 41 cases of that virus. And so by January the 31st, the WHO labeled China coronavirus a public health crisis. And so then by the February 2nd, China would report more than 17,000 cases. So in steps Dr. Fauci and French company Sanofi Pasteur, in 2006, there was an H5N1 outbreak in Asia, and by June, human-to-human transmission was confirmed, but no one in the United States was infected at that time. And so in response, the New York Department of Health concocted a response to this pandemic. In a complete 180 from what is being done today, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who has served as the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases since 1984, and the New York City Mayor Bloomberg recommended against a mandatory quarantine. Soon after, in 2007, Dr. Fauci personally licensed and saw to the performance of clinical trials to create a vaccine for the H5N1 pandemic that was previously declared by Fauci. The company that Fauci worked with to create and stockpile a vaccine for the avian flu was Sanofi Pasteur. Are you seeing the big picture now? So the FDA has licensed Sanofi Pasteur's H5N1 vaccine, the first avian flu vaccine for humans. Sanofi Pasteur, in collaboration with the National Institutes of Health, submitted a BLA to the FDA for the vaccine. The licensure is the first step in achieving the government's goal of stockpiling vaccine to protect those who are at increased risk of exposure to the H5N1 flu virus contained in the vaccine during the early stages of a pandemic. Fast forward this to February 18, 2020. As America was preparing for the China coronavirus, the HHS engaged Sanofi Pasteur to help develop a coronavirus vaccine. At that same time and through April, Dr. Fauci was arguing against the use of hydroxychloroquine as a cure for the China coronavirus. Well, you know why, don't you? Because he's got a patent on that cure. And he wants to make big money with big pharma. So he doesn't want this hydroxychloroquine to get out because, it's very inexpensive and it works. And Fauci doesn't want you to take anything that works. That's what this big pharma is all about. Has anyone, after all these years, ever been cured for anything? No. All they do is they keep adding more junk to your pills, and that's what gets you sicker and sicker. You have to stop this Western medicines because it's not doing us any good. All they're doing is just compounding our problems. So the White House Coronavirus Task Force had its biggest fight yet on Saturday, pitting the economic advisor, Peter Navarro, against infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci. At issue was how enthusiastically should the White House tout the prospects of an anti-malarial drug to fight the COVID-19. And Peter Navarro reportedly was very angry with Fauci and supplied folders of studies showing how the anti-malaria drug worked against the coronavirus. Navarro was also reminded all in the room that it was Dr. Fauci who argued against President Trump's travel ban with China in January. So he's the one that was pushing and pulling and pulling the strings to get everybody to move in his direction. And Gates is, salivating in the background there, waiting for his goons to hand out the death virus. That's what they're waiting on. Nothing to cure you. So don't listen to these people. Go get your hydroxychloroquine and use those recipes that I gave you in the video, the last video that I did. So, it says here that Sanofi Pasteur is related to one of the very first Western labs located in the Republic of China. One of its investors is George Soros. Well, Soros also invests in a company in Wuhan, China. Should we be surprised? Where the coronavirus outbreak began. So that company is called Wuxi AppTec, which just so happens they develop vaccines too. Isn't that wonderful? So this company is also related to the former head of the China Communist Party, Wang Zemin, or Jiang Zemin. One of the vice presidents of French company Sanofi quit his job and went to Wuxi AppTec. Raymond J. Fitch, also known as RJ, left Sanofi Pasteur to serve as vice president of manufacturing at the Wuxi AppTec. The Gates Foundation. The foundation was created by American billionaire Bill Gates, hired Sanofi Pasteur to explore the technical and regulatory feasibility of micropellet technology for the development of cost-effective novel combination vaccines that are thermal stable. The foundation also worked with Sanofi on a polio vaccine. Then in March of 2020, Sanofi announced that the Gates Foundation was working again with them, this time on the coronavirus. So see how they're all combining and manipulating and working together? The Sanofi is proud to be part of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Consortium to accelerate the development, manufacture, and delivery of vaccines, diagnostics, and treatments to fight the COVID-19. Yeah, you're walking right into the Grim Reaper's chambers is what you're doing. So don't even think about taking anything of that sort. Don't take anything, tests, no swabs, nothing. And as noted above, now Sanofi has also been engaged by the United States government to work on a vaccine for the coronavirus. So he's working both sides now. China at first covered up the coronavirus, but as soon as it admitted what was going on, the virus had spread and economic opportunists around the world jumped in. Hat tip D. Manny. And that was provided by, like I said, it was from the Outraged Patriot. Okay, so this is Sanofi in combination with GlaxoSmithKline. You've all heard of those, right? I wanted to show you this so that I would kind of like jerk your memory. Snagged the biggest coronavirus vaccine deal yet. This caught my attention and I had to share it with you. The arrangement brings the Trump administration's investment in coronavirus vaccine projects to more than $8 billion. The head of the federal effort is a former GSK executive. A production facility of the French pharmaceutical company Sanofi in Val d'Isère, France. Joel Saget, Agency France Press, and the Getty Images by Katie Thomas, July 31st, 2020. It says the French drug maker Sanofi said on Friday that it had secured an agreement of up to $2.1 billion to supply the United States federal government with 100 million doses of its experimental coronavirus vaccine. the largest such deal announced to date. The arrangement brings the Trump administration's investment in coronavirus vaccine projects to more than $8 billion. This sprawling multi-agency effort, known as Operation Warp Speed, is placing bets on multiple vaccines and is paying companies to manufacture millions of doses before clinical trials have been completed. The global need for a vaccine to help prevent COVID-19 is massive, and no single vaccine or company will be able to meet the global demand alone. Thomas Triumph, Executive Vice President and Global Head of Sanofi Pasteur, the company's vaccine division, and in a statement. Also on Friday, the European Union said it was working on a deal with Sanofi to buy up to 300 million doses of potential vaccines to distribute to citizens in its 27 member countries. The announcements came 2 days after a deal with the British government to supply up to 60 million doses of the vaccine. Financial details of those deals were not disclosed. I don't know if that sounds good or bad to me. Under the U.S. deal, Sanofi and its partner, the British pharmaceutical company GlaxoSmithKline, will receive federal funding to pay for clinical trials as well as for manufacturing the vaccine. Sanofi said that the deal also includes an option for the company to supply an additional 500 million doses. The company expects to begin clinical trials to test for safety in September. And what are these clinical trials, and who are these guinea pigs? So the company expects to begin clinical trials to test for safety in September. That's another month away, followed by late-stage efficacy trials before the end of this year. Sanofi said it could apply for regulatory approval in the first half of next year. If the vaccine is successful, it would be made available to Americans at no cost other than what providers charge to administer it, and the federal government said in a statement. The head of Operation Warp Speed, wow. I mean, just that title alone, doesn't that just like ring bells in your head? The head of Operation Warp Speed, Moncef Slaoui, is a former GSK executive who, as of May, held just under 10 million in the GSK stock. Now, Dr. Slaoui's financial ties to some of the companies that are pursuing the coronavirus vaccines have raised questions about conflicts of interest. No duh. Dr. Slaoui is not a federal employee, instead working under a $1 contract that exempts him from the federal rules that would require him to list his outside positions, stock holdings, and other potential conflicts. So Dr. Slaoui said in an interview in May that he was determined to avoid any conflicts of interest, but that his GSK stock represented his retirement from 29 years at the company, and that he had told federal officials he would not take the job if he had to sell it. This is Dr. Moncef Slaoui's financial ties to some of the companies that are pursuing coronavirus vaccines have raised questions about conflicts of interest. Samuel Coram for the New York Times. So there's Burks in the background there. Sanofi and GSK did not say how much of the federal money would go to each company, only that Sanofi would receive the most. Well, GSK did not comment on whether Dr. Slaoui had recused himself from the negotiations over the deal. And a senior administration official said that all agreements were negotiated by Federal Acquisition Professionals, and that Dr. Slaoui did not play a role in the negotiations. Well, no, because they have people that do that for them. That's what they pay them to do. You know, that kind of like takes you another step away from the deal to make it look like you're not even a part of it. Well, guess what? We're on to you guys, so that does not work no more. There's no cloak there to hide anything that you're doing. Okay, so a handful of other vaccine candidates are already in late-stage clinical trials, and some, such as AstraZeneca and Moderna, have said a vaccine could be ready before the end of this year. So I don't know about you, but I am not going near anything of that sort, and I happen to know that President Trump is going to be putting into law that you do not have to take any such a vaccine. You will not be forced to do that. You have your own choice. And that's how he's going to put that into law. So, Sanofi's coronavirus vaccine relies on a protein-based technology that the company already uses to produce an influenza vaccine. Sanofi's coronavirus vaccine relies on a protein-based technology that the company already uses to produce an influenza vaccine. Is that an oxymoron or what? Because they already produced one, right? And it's based on this protein, and now they want to do that for the coronavirus. Is that how I'm reading that, or am I really out of this world right now? So it is similar to a technique used by another company, which is Novavax, that will receive up to $1.6 billion from the Defense Department and the Department of Health and Human Services to develop its experimental vaccine. Well, who's going to take all this experimental vaccine crap? Don't you dare let your kids get that. Don't you dare let your grandparents get that. Don't you dare. I don't care. You have to wake up your family and say, look, this is not right. The GSK is supplying the Sanofi vaccine with an adjuvant, an ingredient used in many vaccines that boosts the immune response. I don't think so. Sanofi is also developing a separate vaccine in partnership now with Translate Bio that uses so-called messenger, keyword, right, RNA to provoke an immune response in the body. Why would you want something going in there and provoking anything in your body? That is so asinine. That vaccine is expected to enter clinical trials in the fall. Do not, folks, please, do not be the guinea pig. Listen to this again. Sanofi is also developing a separate vaccine in partnership with Translate Bio that uses the so-called messenger RNA to provoke an immune response in the body. That vaccine is expected to enter clinical trials in the fall. I don't want nothing in there, provoking anything in my body. So it's your call, but that's something I would never do, and I would never even think of anyone in my family. I would have to slap them upside the head and say, look, this is what's going on. So as a French company, Sanofi has had to carefully navigate the geopolitics of vaccine development. Well, of course they do. They have to go through the back doors. They got to slither through through the underground. They know what they're doing. They're like this octopus with all the tentacles. They're everywhere. So that's why they go around the back door. So in May, the company's chief executive, Paul Hudson, faced backlash after he said that the United States would get the largest number of doses because they were investing the most. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. That is too much, isn't it? The remarks caused the company to backpedal, explaining that we have always been committed in these unprecedented circumstances to make our vaccine accessible to everyone. Matna Stevas Gridnev contributed, reporting from Brussels. Oh, the dark side. It's the weekend, folks. I hope you got your popcorn, your favorite beverage, or a nice hot cup of coffee, or possibly some tea, and a little sweet cookie on the side. Oh, this has been cherry, isn't it? Yeah, we're seeing a lot that's going on in the backside here. And we got to stay on top of it because they think they've got one over us, and they don't.